Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. Our focus today is on the power sector. Nigeria's population is 3 times that of South Africa's, but it only has less than a third of South Africa's installed power generation capacity. It is not only Nigerian consumers who are suffering, but their businesses as well, as power cuts in Nigeria have an adverse impact on the overall economy. At present, less than half of Nigeria's population has access to grid-connected electricity. It seems counterintuitive that one of the largest oil-producing and natural gas strongholds in the world struggles with providing power to its 182 million strong population. But in fact, no one, not even the elite, is immune to the failings of Nigeria's power sector. Nigerians, cut across all social and economic divide, have now adapted to dim and sparse streetlights as is seen in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And worse off, many businesses, including micro, small to medium-scale businesses, regularly shut down due to inadequate power supply and the high cost of running a generator. On today's episode of the Osasu Show, we speak with a qualified attorney with graduate advanced degrees in law, business, and public policy from Harvard University and the University of Boston, Massachusetts. She was the Senior Technical Advisor, Policy and Partnerships to the Honorable Minister of Power from February 2013 to May 2015. She was also Senior Advisor to Chairman CEO, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission from August 2012 to January 2013. She was also the Special Assistant to the Coordinating Minister of the Economy and Minister of Finance from August 2011 to August 2012. She is a Desmond Tutu Fellow 2013 and a Dwight Eisenhower Fellow 2015. Find out who when we return from this short break. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back on the Osasu Show. Welcome back to today's episode of the Osasu Show. With me is Miss Ngozi Ife-Malo, who is the co-founder of Clean Technology Hub and country director of Power for All campaign in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining me on today's program.
Thank you, Osasu.
My pleasure. So in your opinion, what are 3 major obstacles affecting the power sector in Nigeria?
I think one of the major things is financing. You see a lot of the distribution companies having problems first with collections, having been over leveraged in terms of how those assets were bought and sold. Many of them haven't quite been able to get enough of their customer base paying in a way that can help them pay back their loans in good time. The other thing that has happened over time is a lot of the inconsistent policies that we've had. I think that's changing. I think the policy framework in the sector is clearer now. But those inconsistencies of the past has created decades of mistrust, so that investors who should be coming into the sector and should have been in the sector the past 10, 15, 20 years are still shy and wondering whether these ones would last. And then I think the third one, I think is the general economy and FX problems. People are worried about if they bring their investments into Nigeria, how do they repatriate it out? How do they get financing in dollars and then, have to start paying back the money in all of those things that general investors worry about in other sectors. That also affects the power sector.
So we can group all those three problems into financing. Yes. I recently had a conversation with a colleague of mine, and she revealed to me that we actually generate enough power, but the distribution is where the issue is in Nigeria. So that means we're generating enough power to distribute to the entire country, but we're not doing that because of proper billing and balancing, right?
I think the weakest link in the power value chain is in the transmission sector, not so much the distribution. I mean, the distribution has its own problems, some of which I just listed. Yes, we do generate a lot of power. I mean, even the problem with our generation capacity, I think there's been figures I've seen that says we're about 10,000 megawatts. We could generate at least 10,000 megawatts based on all of the power turbines that we have, especially if they're running at full capacity. Problem is wheeling them out to the distribution networks. And so that transmission link that connects the generation to the distribution
is where the issue is.
Is where the issue is.
Is it because of poor billing? Because that also has to do, my sources claim that also has to do with finances. They're not able to bill.
It is financing. Our transmission infrastructure is aged. Some of them have been there for about 20, 30 years, and it costs a lot of money to upgrade them. We're not able to get that money. I mean, the kind of financing that's needed, it's going to take public-private financing. The country doesn't have that type of...
How much? What's the ballpark figure?
It's difficult for me to say now because, with the rate of inflation. But there are times when, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, you were hearing things like about 300 billion, That's a huge amount of money to upgrade, the entire country's transmission infrastructure.
Okay, Nigeria's current power supply is from a mixture of sources. We have thermal power, which is mainly oil and gas, which constitutes about 82% of our power generation, while hydropower is made up of 17.8%. If we diversify to solar and wind energy, like the global community is asking us to do, what are the chances this will solve our epileptic power supply?
It would help, especially in terms of the unelectrified. If the statistics are to be believed, we have 60% of Nigerians being unelectrified, meaning that these are people not connected to the national grid. And that's a huge problem. So when you talk about other issues around productivity, infrastructure, education, power is a major issue. People don't have power, how are hospitals supposed to work? How are schools supposed to function? How are our primary healthcare infrastructures are almost moribund. So this affects development in core ways that we can't even begin to enunciate. However, if we're able to diversify to renewable energy and use that to get to those unmet needs when it comes to electrification, or even those who have power deficits. So they're connected to the grid, but it's so unreliable that it's not good enough for them to run a business consistently. You would see an improvement. If you ask any manufacturer, whether it's a medium-scale manufacturer, small-scale manufacturer, or large-scale manufacturer, most of them will tell you that 70% of the overhead costs go on power. I should be asking you even how much it takes you to power your studios.
I tell people all the time I can hire 4 additional staff a month if I didn't have the power.
To buy diesel that's people's reality.
So you believe solar and wind energy can solve this problem?
Not even just solar and wind. There is geothermal, there is biomass and biogas, which can be used to power agricultural value chains, and our sources of production. There is mini hydros, which we can then use to get into communities that have water and use them for other sources of production.
The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, said Western powers are blocking Nigeria's power solution. She said this on the backbone of the global force, of the global conversation now to shift to renewable energy. She said specifically, and I want to quote her, that we want to build a coal power plant because we're a country blessed with coal. Yes, we have power problems. So it doesn't take a genius to work out that it will make sense to build a coal power plant. However, we're being blocked from doing so because it is not green. This is not fair because they have an entire Western industrialization that was built on coal-fired energy. This is the competitive advantage that was used to develop Europe. Yet now that Nigeria wants to do it, they say it's not green, so we cannot. What's your response to that?
Well, I think the Honorable Minister makes a very emotive argument. And I say that with all respect. You know, I agree with her that, you know, the West certainly did grow in leaps and bounds using, you know, fossil fuel technologies. Even apart from coal, we have huge gas deposits where supposedly the second or third largest gas deposits in the world. And almost all our turbines are gas-fired from that statistics that you read earlier on. We're never going to stop using fossil fuel. That's the truth. It's not going, as long as these things are in the ground, we're not going to use it. I think what the entire conversation around climate reality and what I think I've heard from the Ministry of Power and in terms of some of the policy frameworks coming out of power is that we can reach incremental power to get where we need to be sustainable as a country in terms of our power needs and our power generation, distribution, and transmission. If we diversify, we bring in other sources that we haven't been looking at because we've been so focused on the fossil. But remember also that a lot of these countries, part of our climate reality in Nigeria is that there is, you know, issues around climate change. We feel it every day. We can't ignore those things because they're going to affect our children, our grandchildren's future. And those countries who are asking that, you know, developing countries not wait until things, even though we generate less, you know, we contribute less to all of that climate change narrative. But we shouldn't wait until our own environments are completely destroyed, like what's happened in the Niger Delta, with what's happened in some of the coal communities where they've been extracted, to actually begin to put in place checks and balances to make sure that these things don't hit us when it's too late. So that's my answer to her, that we can actually do both. We can walk and chew gum. We can actually address issues of climate change, but, you know, also put in issues around extractive governance at the same time.
Yes.
So that, you know, those two things are making sure that people's livelihoods, whether it's fishery, whether it's farming, continue to be sustainable for another 100. We're losing land, we're losing wetlands in Nigeria. That's the truth.
Yeah.
We're shrinking.
So diversification is the answer.
Yes.
Okay. Back to the statistics. Nigeria's population is 3 times that of South Africa's, but it only has less than a third of South Africa's installed power generation capacity.
Yes.
A recent argument came up with the Big Brother Naija house, or the show, where it was meant to be based on, you know, Nigerians. Big Brother Naija, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Big Brother Nigeria.
Yes.
And it was shot and filmed in South Africa, mainly due to our power inconsistency.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
I think that's a national embarrassment. I mean, and we should be holding firms like DSTV and MTN into account.
But can you blame them?
No, I can't. But this is where they should have done a bit of innovative thinking. There are architects in Nigeria who are actually building greenhouses, houses that are run completely 100% on solar. There's one like that in Abuja, here in Guzape. It's been off grid for about 2 years now, by Yusuf Suleiman. And it's running on wind and solar completely. If you needed a house where there would not be any power cuts for 24 hours a day for a period of 3 or 4 months, well, go renewable. There are houses like that. And I know that some people are looking for people to buy those houses. There are estates that are coming up from Abuja to Lagos to Kano, where it's completely off-grid estates.
The popular argument about renewable energy is that it's expensive, especially solar energy.
The upfront costs are high. I'll admit that, yes. But, you know, a lot of the things that we see in the market, especially amongst the developers and distributors, is that they're doing a lot of pay-as-you-go systems. So people can pay instrumentally for what they use and how they use it.
But would this still solve the mass power problem? We're talking about a population where 70% of 182 million people are living below the poverty line, $1 a day. How are they going to afford renewable energy?
It's been done in other countries. We should look at models that have been done, that have happened in Kenya and Tanzania.
But that's with the help of government subsidies, though.
No, we don't even want subsidies. As Power for All, and I will speak as Power for All now, we don't even want, the only place we think subsidies should come in in the renewable energy sector is for mini grids, because it's been shown from time after time that without adequate subsidy, that mini grid developments can't really take off. But if it's for standalone home systems, community electrification, and all of those things, pico solar, we don't want middlemen. With the subsidy regimes we've had in Nigeria have not worked. Kerosene subsidy was to help poor people. It hasn't worked. We know the scandal that happened around diesel subsidy. We just don't want to create another. Yes, pay as you go, small, very little by little, what you can use, what you can afford. And if all you can afford to buy is 5 hours of light a day, well, then so be it. So maybe that's going to be you.
From your calculation, a household that's making $1 a day, that's 365 naira a day.
How much are they paying for kerosene and the candles? Because they're using something to light their ways in their homes anyway. Those are the trade-off costs that you have to do to find out what they can afford. And if they're able to afford 5 hours of steady electricity a day, is it going to help them start a business where they can increase their income from that $1 a day to $3 a day? So these are some of the economic calculations. And in communities where you have seen people adopt renewable energy, you've seen the whole community change. There are new businesses, cottage industries that start to spring up in those communities.
Okay. One of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals set in place by the United Nations is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all by 2030. I see you're smiling. At present, less than half of Nigeria's population has access to grid-connected electricity.
Yeah.
Do you believe this is feasible by 2030?
For Nigeria?
For Nigeria.
I will say we have a long way to go. I'll be honest. I mean, we have a long way to go. But this is where government should come in. There are ways to unlock the barriers to actually help the sector take off.
Aside from subsidy?
Outside of subsidies, remove the taxes and tariffs. To give you an example, when you talked about the high cost of solar, to bring in panels, government put in a policy that, you bring it in at zero tariff. Great, yay. To bring in batteries, I think it's 35% or 40%. Well, you cannot bring in solar panels without bringing batteries. What's going to be the use of it? So obviously there's a 40% tax on bringing in these things. And how does that affect the bottom line cost for the people who actually go and do the installations, the engineers, the developers, the distributors? It affects. So it can make it cost anything from 1,000 to 9,000 naira. Those are the opportunities. So when in Tanzania and Kenya, that's what they did. The government just eliminated zero taxes and tariffs. Bring the stuff in less electrified communities. And that's why you could see things just sort of taking off in those countries. That's what we should do.
Okay, very lastly, what is your overall assessment of, it's been 2 years since President Muhammadu Buhari took office. What's your... I
can't believe you snuck that one in.
No, I want to ask you point to one person. What's your assessment of the Minister of Power Works and Housing, his performance thus far in the last 2 years?
I think the power sector, and I will come to the minister in 1 second, I think we've seen a lot of hiccups in the power sector. And I know that the power ministry is doing a lot because we work very closely with them to try. There's never been a time we as a campaign have gone to them to say these are the things you should be looking at, but they have not given us hearing and have not considered all of our arguments on the merits. In terms of the minister, because you cannot talk about the minister in isolation from the ministry. In terms of the minister, I think he has his hands full. He's running 3 major infrastructure ministries. And I think that he's said the right thing. I've seen some changes, for instance, in the Rural Electrification Agency. There's a new board and a new management now. We're very happy with the board and management that he's put in place because we think they're technically competent. He has an excellent permanent secretary who's not from the bureaucracy, but is a technocrat and can help run affairs. Still some ways to go, but at least we see some movement.
Some movement.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ngozi Ifeoma-Malu, the co-founder of Clean Technology Hub and the country director for Power for All campaign.
Thank you so much
for joining us
Osasu.
in today's program.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So we'll take another break right now. When we return, we'll wrap up this segment of the Osasu Show. Don't go anywhere.
At Holocrunch, we take pride in serving you top-notch gourmet popcorn. Made from the finest ingredients sourced locally and around the world. fluffed and coated in our sweet, sweet caramel. Yummy! With our vast variety of flavors ranging from sweet to savory, caramel, coconut caramel, sweet and salty, confetti, and lots more. You are spoiled with choice. Holocrunch, crunchy, yummy goodness.
It's over 3 months now. I don't see light with my eye. It's only one day I receive light since 7 to 4 in the AM. From that day I didn't see light. NEPA come, I pay up to 16,000 for only one day. I tell NEPA to remove their electric wire from my house because there is no light. Niger now they give them light. Then they get light 24 hours. I've been in Niger. I've been in Ghana. Now they supply the light. Now they give them. How we go get food? We not chop belly food. We they give neighbor. So what did I move? The more die. So now I say NEPA remove their cable from my house.
Since I come Papa here, there's no light at all. And when month ends, we always pay NEPA bill. Make they do better. Make they give us light now. Heat they kill us now. We get baby picking there inside room.
I've been in this Papa for almost 29 years. For the past 29 years, we did not have light, but we thank the effort of the government who brought us a transformer. But we discovered that the transformer they brought was it is the community who paid for the transformers. We paid for the transformers, the pole, the electric wires, everything with the communities. We bought it. But now every month they will bring NEPA bill. They will bring a bill to us. We don't argue, we pay the bill. But there's no light. Like this environment, I think is going to 1 month now. We have not even seen a flash of a light in this environment. Last time I went to NEPA office to confront them and I asked them what is the matter. They said that there's a problem that a pole fall. And if a pole should fall in an environment, why we are paying NEPA bill? Is it our responsibility after paying NEPA bill, you go and buy pole again and set this thing? They say it is the pole that fall that make us up till now. We did not even see light. Because they know that there's no poor man who able to buy all this mechanical generator and fix in a compound. So it is the problem of our leaders who is leading us, who did not allow us to enjoy what they enjoy. Formerly, they say the kerosene was made for poor people, but now you just go to the filling station and see if a poor man can able to buy a liter of kerosene. The kerosene is even cost more than the fuel that they are using in a car. Like me, I use so-called I pass my neighbor every day, every night, because I can't own it in the afternoon. I own it in the evening time. I spend not less than 700 naira.
It is evident from our discussions today that solving the issues in regards to Nigeria's power sector is not a one-day sprint. However, it can be done through sheer will and competence. Is the Honorable Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, capable of achieving this great feat before 2019? I think so. But from the blacked out streets in Abuja to the blacked out villages in Ekpoma and Dangoma, Nigerians are not asking for much when they demand Fashola must do more. That's it for today's program. To further this discussion, you can follow us on social media at The Osasu Show, at TOS TV Network, and at Osasu Nigerian on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. To read my opinion articles and my personal opinion in general on this subject matter and others, you can visit my personal website, www.osasuigbenadian.com. To find out more news on sustainable development and current affairs across Africa, you can visit our website, tostvnetwork.com. I'll see you same time, same place next week, and until then, take very good care of yourself. God bless you.